Vanessa, and can I just ask everyone to give Vanessa and all the other people who've organised this rally today a big shout out, because they've worked so hard. It's fantastic to see all of you here, and it's really fantastic for me to meet such heroes of the anti-Brexit movement as Tanya and Mike Galsworthy today. It's really funny when you've been interacting with people on Twitter for a couple of years and you finally meet them in person. And it's also really great to see a cross-party turnout today. I see the Lib Dems standing here. My very good friend Catherine Styler spoke for the Labour Party earlier, and for the first time in my life I walked up the street holding a banner with a Tory. Please. I don't know where Stu is, but I just want to say good on him. Good on him. And of course my very good friend Patrick Harvey is here from the Scottish Green Party. I'm very proud to represent part of the city of Edinburgh because it voted 74% to remain. And that is the biggest Remain vote in a major city in the United Kingdom. And it's not really surprising because, of course, Edinburgh is the capital city of Scotland, which also voted to remain by 62%. Now, for my sins, I'm on the Brexit Select Committee, and last week I had the honour of being attacked by the Daily Express and called, it's a real badge of honour, and called one of the high priests of Remain. Quite a nice title. The thing is, before I became a politician, I was a lawyer, and I like to do things on the basis of evidence. And I've sat in that Select Committee for a couple of years now, nearly. And it feels like a couple of years, maybe not quite that, but almost. And we've looked at the evidence. We've looked at the evidence of what Brexit will do to the nations of these islands. We've looked at the evidence of the alternatives. And we know that overwhelmingly that evidence shows us that Brexit is a bad thing. A bad thing for jobs, a bad thing for the economy, a bad thing for our society, and a bad thing for our rights. And so if we do this, even just purely taking all emotion out of it and looking at the evidence, Brexit is not good for the nations of the United Kingdom. Now, one of the things that the Daily Express said about the High Priests of Remain was that we are trying to keep the United Kingdom in the EU by sleight of hand. Well, I'm not trying to do that at all. I'm trying to do it absolutely openly. I might one day want to see an independent Scotland, but I want to see all the nations of these islands remain in the European Union. The great thing about the European Union is, if you're a member of the European Union as a nation state, then you're an equal. And we need only look across the sea to Ireland to see the respect that the Republic of Ireland enjoys at the top table in the European Union. And that's what I want for all the nations of these islands, not just for Ireland, but for Scotland, for England, and for Wales as well. And I think it's important to remember, as Vanessa said earlier, that 2 out of the 4 nations in the United Kingdom voted to remain. And even Wales, and I was in Wales yesterday speaking at the Plaid Cymru conference, even Wales only voted to leave by a very small margin, and they didn't vote for a hard Brexit. And that's why my colleagues in the Scottish Government behind me have been working very closely with colleagues in the Welsh Government to try and protect the devolved settlements from Brexit. And I'm very proud that the continuity bill that's brought in by the Scottish Parliament and the Scottish Government and passed by a significant majority, cross-party apart from the Tories and one Lib Dem, in the Scottish Parliament last week, does things like it keeps the Charter of Fundamental Rights in relation to devolved matters. Ladies and gentlemen, that's not good enough for me. I'd like to see the Charter, the rights in the Charter of Fundamental Rights kept for everyone on these islands, not just for Scots, but for everyone. Now, Tanya referred to Cambridge Analytica, and there's some very interesting writing about Cambridge Analytica in various newspapers today, and some great writing by an independent investigative journalist called Adam Ramsey, who lives in Edinburgh. I retweeted his article this morning, have a look at it. I think there's a real stink about the money that went into the Leave campaign and the way it operated. But even if that weren't the case, I think in this week where we started to get the lid off the can of worms about Cambridge Analytica, we also saw the wheels really coming off the Brexit bus in relation to a big factor across the United Kingdom which made some people vote Leave, and that is the common fisheries policy. And I know from painful experience, because a lot of my colleagues lost their seats to Tories over this fishing industry issue in the last election, I know that the fishing communities don't like the Commons fisheries policy, and I can see why. They've not done very well out of it. But they've been sold a pup by the Tory party and told a pack of lies about how easy it will be to take us out of the Commons fisheries policy. And Ruth Davidson and Michael Gove in particular made a promise only 2 weeks ago, which has been broken, that the fishermen and the fishing communities would be leaving the Commons fishery policy next March. That's not happening now. If we look at the guidelines that were issued yesterday and the speeches that Theresa May has made, it's quite clear that the fishing communities are going to be used as a bargaining chip in the Brexit process and are not going to get what they voted for. So I think that tells us that is a hard example of the lies that were told to win the campaign. Now, I mentioned Ireland earlier, and the reason I mentioned them was, as we've seen, they've been very central to the negotiations because it's very important for Ireland to keep the hard-won peace and keep the border open between the north and the south, and the EU27 have respected that. And I have to say, as a Scot, I look with some envy at the way in which Ireland is treated in the European Union compared to the way that Scotland is treated in the Union of the United Kingdom. Because I know that there'll be people in this audience who'd like to see the UK remain, and people like me who'd like to see an independent Scotland. But I think what can unite us all is the compromise that the Scottish Government put forward, which was to stay in the single market and stay in the customs union at the very least. And I just wish to God that a majority of the House of Commons would get behind that for the whole of the United Kingdom. Now, again, I know there's many people in this audience who feel very passionately that there should be a second referendum, and I completely understand the arguments for that. And I mean a second referendum on whether or not we remain in the EU. But what I will say is that in the last referendum, Scotland voted overwhelmingly to remain, and that was ignored. So if there is going to be another cross-UK referendum in the EU, there has to be some respect shown for the constitutional settlement and some respect built into it for the will of the Scottish people. Briefly on the famous assessments that David Davies told us didn't exist, and then it turned out they did exist, and then they tried to keep them from you, and eventually the committee I sit on voted by a majority to reveal them. Those assessments were prepared by the UK government, and they're very interesting, ladies and gentlemen, because they factor in what the Tories and the Leavers tell us are the potential gains of Brexit, and I've read them in detail. The potential gains, they say, are third-party free trade agreements with other countries and deregulation. But even on their own assessments, factoring those potential gains in, the disadvantages of Brexit far outweigh even what the Brexiteers would call the advantages. And it's very significant that the UK government's assessments mirror almost exactly what my colleagues behind in the Scottish Government published in January of the assessment of the impact of Scotland. And that's an impact that we felt across the whole of the UK, a negative impact. So friends, let's work together, let's continue to work together across party to stop this madness for the whole of the UK. Let's keep Scotland and all the nations of these islands in the European Union.